Welcome to this edition of Let's Talk. I'm Mike Fitzsimmons, and today we're talking politics, 5th Congressional District, State of Washington politics we are. And my guest at this time is Stephen Major, who is running against the incumbent Cathy McMorris Rodgers. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
First question, of course, right off the top would have to be, why are you doing this?
Well, you know what? After having been a servant of the Republican Party for 30 years, pretty much on and off and a dedicated Republican, I just don't like the direction that the party's going in. And primarily, that was revealed to me that we had some issues in the 2016 election when Donald Trump, became the candidate for the Republican Party. There was a tremendous amount of resistance in Donald Trump being president. And I supported Donald Trump. I was one of the first delegates for him here in the 4th Legislative District in Spokane County. But I supported Donald Trump because I felt that there was a need within the party to break up the status quo with that, because we've seen that we've had some very ineffective legislation. We have the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which I wholeheartedly do not agree with. Donald Trump was very strong on that. But so we got Donald Trump elected into office and stuff, and he came in with a lot of ideas and things about, changing things, America first and that, which I agreed with. However, since that time, Donald Trump, in my opinion, has been very, very limited in carrying out the rest of his promises that he made to the American people that got him elected because of the intransigence of the Republican Party establishment. The incumbents we have in office right now, I don't think support that.
Would you say that the loss of the House after 2 years of Trump's presidency was a result of that?
I would definitely think so. I definitely think so because, in a lot of ways, Donald Trump, outside guy, first time running for public office, but he came in there and he kind of reinvigorated that American spirit. And not only that, but putting America first. And he was kind of empowering people. If you listen to his speeches when he was a candidate, there was a lot of Ronald Reagan in him as well that appealed to that. But to answer your question, I think that's so, because after 2 years in office, he was limited on his ability to deliver on a lot of those promises he made, and I think that's true.
Were a lot of reluctant Republicans to even support him to begin with when he won the nomination, and there were a lot of Republicans who were reluctant to warm to him at all because he threatened them. I mean, let's be realistic. Whether Democrat or Republican, there's an establishment in Washington, D.C. with a set of expectations that this president has basically threatened since day one. And, when you go to drain the swamp, some of the problem is that you're going to discover that there are a few folks that you thought would help you that actually are swamp creatures.
Very well said. Very well said. And I believe that's a big problem.
All right, let's take a look at Cathy McMorris Rodgers. You supported her.
I absolutely did.
You were one of her advocates for quite some time.
And indeed I was. I think Cathy's done many, many wonderful things during her tenure in office. But there seems to be this issue with any candidate, any elected official. If they stay in office for too long, eventually it seems to be this trend where they become less and less effective when it comes to representing the individual interests of their constituents and spending more and more time working for the establishment and the bureaucracy that maintains their power rather than dealing with these hard issues that we have to deal with.
Give me an example of where she failed to do that.
Well, okay. Now, like I said, I'm not going to talk bad about Cathy. I just want to point out some facts about that because she's a great lady. But we look at the present situation that we're in right now, all this civil unrest that we have. The majority of the issues that are causing this, in my opinion, for these people to rise up and go about and do the things are center around issues that have not been substantially addressed or effectively addressed in the last 20 years. Those would be issues such as health insurance, which is access to affordable health insurance. The deficit most certainly has not been reduced in the last 20 years. The growth of federal government has actually expanded, where I read recently in a Bloomberg article, by 70% in the last 20 years. The infringement upon our civil rights and all those guaranteed in the Constitution have been infringed upon. So we've seen everything that's not Republican occurring during the times where Republicans, for the most part, were in control of things.
Isn't it true that the Congress, in many respects, has basically abdicated authorities under the Constitution to the executive branch that it had, that it could have prevented entirely, but has chosen to do that? Now it's pretty difficult to get it back once you've given it away.
Absolutely. I mean, they have neglected to do what they're there for. I mean, people there's this big misunderstanding about how our government functions and what the purpose of Congress is and what the purpose of the executive branch is. And they have abdicated that authority to the executive branch because I don't think they want to deal with the nitty-gritty of what they've got to do to get these effective changes that we need.
And to the extent that the Republicans in the establishment, have interests to protect that are not necessarily consistent with that of their constituents, these folks have chosen to abdicate.
And they really have.
Did McMorris Rodgers do that?
I would have to say so, yes. Because we haven't seen any effective changes in the last 20 years, even during her term, but much more now. Since 2016, we had a wonderful opportunity with Donald Trump coming in office. We could get behind him and we get these effective changes that people want. Smaller government, lower taxes, sound immigration policy, all of these things. It hasn't been addressed.
However, now, statistically speaking, the last that I saw was that the Republicans, including the Republicans in Congress, are 91% behind the president. However, that seems to be a statistical abstract, but it doesn't seem to be a reality in practice.
No, it isn't. And that's a very, very good point because this is an election season. And so the party is rallying. They're saying 91% of us are behind Donald Trump. Okay, that's great. What does that really mean? What does that really mean? So why are we not dealing with a number of issues that are still hanging out there that has caused so much of the turmoil and has brought us to this precipice to where we have two parties that can't even talk to one another anymore and pushing each other farther right, farther left?
Well, they can, but they won't.
They won't. That's
It's not
exactly
that
right.
they can't.
Because it's
anytime they wanted to, they could.
Because it's not political expedient.
No.
It's not. So they're not talking. So what do we got? We got cities burning, statues being torn down, rioting in the streets over some very simple things that should have been addressed a long time ago.
What can Congress do if Congress were consistent with your suggestion as to how they ought to function? What could they do to reverse that?
That's a great question. Because what's going on out here is a reflection and a reaction to exactly what's going on in Congress right now. Now, what they need to do, and what I will do when elected, is I'm going to be a voice of reason, unity, and compassion. But the first thing we need to do before we start talking about, well, I'm going to do this policy, I'm going to do that, is we need to just stop and we need to just take a breath and say, hey, we all live in this country. You have your ideas, I have mine. But isn't our focus really supposed to be doing what is the best for our constituents? And let's just have a pause for a little bit. Let's have a pause, sit back, ask these tough questions. How did we arrive at this where we are today with all this diffusion and turmoil? And let's have a conversation and see if maybe we can get back together on things, first and foremost.
The people in the 5th Congressional District, you think have not been well served as a result of this set of circumstances that exist in Washington, D.C. with respect to the Republicans and their leadership. How do you change that? How do you, as one of 435 members of the House of Representatives, change that dynamic in any material way?
What you've got to do to change that dynamic in a material way is, first of all, you can't run into office and just say, you guys are all terrible and whatnot. You got to slow things down a little bit. But you also have to be a voice of reason. I think that what is really lacking in Congress is leadership. Leadership and a good voice of reason. But you've got to build alliances with people. You have to be able to reach compromise, and you have to be able to form more of a collective thought on what we're going to do that's good for this country.
Building alliances take time.
They do take
As
time.
a freshman congressman, without any committee assignments from day one until that takes place, how do you start doing that right off the top?
Love that question. I'll tell you why. If you haven't noticed, in many of the primaries that are currently happening across this country, especially in Republican primaries, you're seeing where upstart Republican candidates like myself are winning the primaries. And in some cases, it looks like they're going to be putting out the long-term incumbents. Now, that's something that needs to happen. So I'm not looking at me being elected as a freshman congressman coming in there and everybody else has 10, 15 terms under their belt, and I'm coming in there and the new guy there goes, hey, it's not going to be like that. It shows that my voice is also consistent with all of these other voices in these other elections that are occurring in the country. So when I get there, there's going to be a fresh crop of freshman congressmen that are going to have the same ideas and opinions as me, because we recognize there's a problem here, and I'll immediately have a good body of people to work with to affect some change.
Is that a reality or an assumption on your part? Because some of these people are coming from places whose ideas as Republicans are quite foreign to your ideas as Republicans.
See, that's the thing. It's like, we're not everybody. If everybody agrees about 100% of everything 100% of the time, there's a problem.
Sure.
There's a problem there. And that may be some wishful thinking on my part, but I think I can generate enough excitement by being as vocal and as outspoken as our President Donald Trump was to motivate the American people to where they're going to take action and they're going to vote and they're going to push those incumbents that may win these elections and stay in office to get in line with more of the kind of thought that I have.
Okay, you're talking to the voters of the 5th Congressional District. How do they know you can do that? Explain how they can be comfortable that Stephen can do that.
Well, this is, okay. When I've been out specifically, I've focused most of my campaign in the rural areas of this community. And what I have found from speaking with these folks is they feel that they have been severely neglected by their current representation in Congress. And I didn't know that. I mean, I knew what problems I had and why I wanted to run and the changes that I wanted to make, but they were more on a macro scale. But when I started getting out and meeting these folks in these communities, I mean, I'm sitting down, I'm talking with folks, and they've been waiting 15 years to have decent internet up there. Their infrastructure's going away. They're losing all these jobs, but there's been nothing done for them to help stimulate their economies, bring some jobs in there. And that's them telling me this. I wasn't even aware of that at this point. And so there is a great deal of neglect there.
And to address that, you're going to need an awful lot of coalitions formed with folks both on the Republican side as well as the opposite side of the aisle. What common ground can you identify in the Congress that you could capitalize on from the first day? Do you see any common ground there, or is there such diversity that it's...
No. In reality, I see a lot of common ground between myself, fellow Republicans, also between myself and fellow Democrats, because I have conversations with my opposition in this race, because I want to speak to everybody and I want to get their points of view. And I find that within the Democratic Party, I have a lot of common ground with these people. I really do, because we're kind of looking for the same things. We want to better the lives for every single one of our constituents. We want to. And we don't want to continue to participate in this political gamemanship and partisanship that's driving this country apart. We really have a lot of the same goals, but we differ on a lot of things too, but we can find a common area to go through.
You know that as a matter of incumbency,
yes,
that about 92% of all incumbents get reelected to office.
That's right.
Kathy McMorris Rogers, I think, is in her 13th year in the House of Representatives, and she had a track record in the state legislature prior to that time. It's a high identification name. The name is well known. She beat a major Democratic foe just last time out 2 years ago. And a lot of folks are, kind of holding pat, like when they play blackjack, no more, don't hit me again, right? How do you overcome that? Because you're talking about folks who are
Right.
concerned that they're not getting what they thought they were paying for, but you're also talking about a lot of folks who are up a certain comfort zone and wouldn't want to take a chance on upsetting that.
And let me tell you, that's a wonderful question, because that is the hardest thing that I have to deal with in my campaign. Because I'm getting a lot of these people that they're just like, I don't want to change. I'm not going to vote for you. And it's not because you may be a bad person or you're going to be a bad candidate. It's just, I know what I'm getting with Kathy. So in other words, they're just like, I'm comfortable with her. I know her name, and she's been in office a long time. So therefore, there must be value in that tenure. So therefore, I'm not going to change.
So how do you get them off the dime?
What I have to do is I say, I understand that, but let's take a look at where we are. Let's take a look at what's going on today. And I assume that most people are up on kind of what's happened and what's occurred that may have led us to this direction and whatnot. And I'm finding out that most people really aren't. They're just comfortable because they know the name.
All right.
And
But you still have to appeal to them.
right. And so I say, so to appeal to them, I say, look, we're in big trouble right now. All this stuff that was going on, we have all these issues that have never been addressed. And this is how it will affect, if this continues on, it's affecting your life now negatively. And if you continue to let it go, because there is no indication that things are going to change, you're going to keep getting the same thing. What I'm offering you is to deal with these issues that keep you up at night, that every single incumbent uses to scare the living hell out of you when election season comes around so that you'll vote for him again.
There are a lot of folks who are supporters, as you were, of Trump, who are concerned that he may not be reelected.
Yes, there's a lot of concern right now.
What about yourself? Do you think he'll be reelected?
I think he will be reelected, and I think he will be reelected in a landslide.
Okay. And if that's the case, then he'll have coattails.
Yes.
And if he has coattails, that means the Republicans will want to obviously profit from that. Okay. If he has coattails, if indeed, as you say, he's reelected by a landslide, that means that the electorate isn't that interested in changing horses right now. Yes?
As far as president
As
goes,
far as president goes.
Yeah.
Okay. But what is the difference then as to how they view the republicanism of Congress, their representation, versus the republicanism of the White House?
from the folks, in myself, Donald Trump is a dedicated American. He really, really does care about America and want to put America first. He cares about the American people. He really, really does, regardless of what the left-wing media has to say about it. And people are comfortable with that because he speaks his mind. He's rough and he's coarse and he sometimes says things he shouldn't before thinking about them. But the view of the presidency from talking with people and the view of Congress are two different things.
That's right.
There's some genuine affection for the president and the things that he's done. And they believe that he would have done more and could do more if it wasn't for the intransigence of these long-term incumbents in leadership positions that are really there, which appears to be to maintain their positions and their power so that they continue to divide this country and battle with the Democrats and get nothing effective done.
We have a couple of major areas of focus right at the moment: COVID-19
Yeah.
and the unrest in the streets, the Black Lives Matter issues, and that sort of thing. To a certain extent, these seem to be diversions that take our attention away from other things that are of equal or even greater importance. But what we are focused on, the nation is focused on, the media is focused on these sorts of things, and as long as they remain focused on this, some of the things you're talking about trying to convey as messages is probably not going to have the opportunity to see the light of day nearly as much as it ought to. What do you do with respect to that in the 5th Congressional District? How's the media treating you?
Well, the media is treating me just fine. Are you asking me in regards to my campaign?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think the media is treating me really fine. I'm getting lots of opportunities to speak, and we're having very engaging conversations, and they're interested in understanding my opinions of my motivations for running for office. Where I'm being mistreated is by my own Republican Party, who really doesn't want me in this race. In my opinion, they're not helpful at all. They don't care to recognize the concerns of the people that I'm hearing, and my concerns generally as a party member and a long-term party member of what some of the changes that we need to implement. They don't care.
So we talked a little bit about this because they're reflecting the theory that Kathy is probably a shoe-in, and we don't want you messing that up.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And you know what? I wouldn't even be in this race if over the last 4 years they would have listened to me and my other fellow PCOs and other people that have concerns. We've voiced these concerns for years, and they're just not interested. So it's their fault that I'm in this race. It really is.
I understand that, but it also is their race to lose.
Right.
And so,
Oh, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
So then, why should people vote for this change if, in fact, you were to upset her in the primary election in August? Would that seat possibly fall to the Democrats?
In the 5th Congressional District?
Yeah.
Not likely.
Could it?
And I don't think so.
Well, people might tell you not likely if she were the candidate, but they might not say the same thing if you're the candidate. It'll make them a lot more nervous.
Right. Okay. I can tell you this from my experience. Okay. This is my first run for public office,
Yeah.
but this is not my first time for being involved in an election.
Oh, you've been involved in lots of elections.
Yeah.
You've been
And
engaged in Republican politics for quite some time.
And many of the people that have been calling my office, that wanting to talk to me, are undecided and or staunchly Democrat at this point, but they're just as upset with their incumbents as I am with our incumbents. And one of the things is that I am finding that I'm having a great amount of appeal as a candidate to Democratic voters.
Is that your formula to win?
It's definitely going to help. But also, there is a huge anti-incumbent feeling among Republicans in the 5th Congressional District right now.
Now, when we say huge, is it better than 50%?
I would say it's about 55 to 60%.
Right, in which case she's vulnerable.
Yes,
You sense that she is.
I sense that she is.
Do you have any statistical data to back that, or is that just a gut feel on your part?
It's not really a gut feeling. It's just when I think of the people that I'm talking to, and I'm talking to a lot of folks in a lot of communities and a lot of phone calls and whatnot, and I would say that it's not just a gut feeling, but no, I'm not keeping stats.
But that means that she's vulnerable.
She indeed is vulnerable.
I mean, not just vulnerable to being upset by a Republican in a primary,
Yeah.
but vulnerable to being upset in the general
Yes,
by a Democrat.
by a Democrat.
Right, and that would be of greater concern, obviously, to your constituency than you're upsetting her.
Exactly. I mean, if I'm understanding you, because if the election were held tomorrow and I was facing a Democratic opponent, I believe that I would have better chances of winning the election than her.
The Democratic Congressional office, the folks that set up candidacies and what have you, are sensing the same thing that you're talking about. They are thinking that she's one of the gettables
Yeah.
out there. Okay, they're thinking that at this point. I don't know whether they're looking at you or not looking at you or taking you seriously or not taking you seriously, but they are looking at her thinking this is one of the, and what they are looking at is the very thing that you have been talking about, the lack of comfort in the incumbent by the Republicans themselves and the willingness for them to entertain the possibility of change. And they're thinking, that's our in, that's the door opening for us.
And just a kind of a follow-up on something. When I get a chance to talk to these folks, the ones that tell me that, look, I'm just not comfortable with you because I don't know you. And I know what I'm going to get or what I think I'm going to get because I'm comfortable with her. She's been there, so there's value in that. And that's generally through emails and stuff. And I say, well, how about, I understand what you're saying, but how would you like to get together? Let's get together for a face-to-face. Let's sit down, you and I have coffee, and let's talk. And when I do that, I'm able to sway them. Because they tell me, look, I can tell by sitting here talking to you that you're legitimate in what you're saying. And you're passionate, and it's evident that your concern is for us. It really is, ultimately.
The reality is, though, that you've got to reach a lot of folks you're never going to have coffee with, because you just can't do that logistically speaking, right?
I know, I'm finding
and
that
many
out.
of them are watching this particular program. So tell me why it is that they would be changed by you. What is it that, in other words, they don't know you. So in the next few minutes that we have left, help them to get to know you. What would be the reason why they should make that choice?
The reason they should make that choice is because if they will take the time to listen or to look into my track record of supporting Republican values. It's not just something that I woke up with. I have been dedicated servant to this party for actually 35 years. I'm getting old, so I don't remember exactly. But it's been a long time. It's been a long time. And I've been consistent in that. And I really didn't want to get into this race. And a lot of them know that. That I did it because if not me, who? If not, we're going to get more of the same. We're going to get more of the same, and nothing's going to change. And I have kids. And I don't want to see this turmoil to continue on and on and on. And secondly, when people start talking about Marxism as an alternative to our form of government, which we're seeing right now, that is absolutely frightening to me. And as I was telling you earlier, I'm a Cold War warrior. I mean, I've seen, I fought against this stuff. And it's bad, bad, bad. But it's a reaction to not getting things done that need to be done to address the issues that would cause people to rise to this level to where they would actually embrace such ridiculous ideas.
What else can you tell me about you that would help me as a voter get to know you, as you say? The kinds of things that you would reveal to me were we having that cup of coffee?
Well, that's a difficult one because I can talk about myself quite a bit, but I mean, I hope to think. I hope to think that when you sit down with a person and you have a conversation with them, you can look into their eyes, and you can look into their heart, and you get a sense of whether they're true to you and what they're saying about themselves. Now, I have a wonderful life, and this country has provided me with a wonderful life, and I was very comfortable, and I could just go home right now and we could call it a day. But I can't do that. I can't do that knowing that if something doesn't change, this country is completely going to implode.
This is your conscience talking.
It's my conscience has gotten me into this race because what's going on is unconscionable. And if somebody doesn't do something, that where are we going to go from here? Things got to change.
So you've got to jump in and take the shot.
I got to do it. I have to do it. I'm morally obligated to do it.
How do people who are watching this get in touch with you, contribute to your campaign, maybe get that cup of coffee?
Oh, I love it. You can reach me. My phone number is 509-217-1912. That's our campaign number, 509-217-1912. Call me. I'm always available, except after 9 o'clock. You can also get on our website, which is majorforcongress.com. That's majorforcongress.com. And you can find out some more information about me. You can also donate to the campaign there. You can volunteer. And I love to hear from everyone.
Are you getting good feedback in those locations? Are you getting contributions? Are you getting volunteers?
That's funny. I am getting some, but I'm not really asking people for money. I'm putting my own money into this game. That's
I understand that, but but you do need help. You got to have a team.
I do need help, and I kind of got into the race late, and so I'm just right now starting to develop a following, a network. Like I have people in the outlying communities that are volunteering. They're handing out flyers. They're putting out yard signs and stuff like that. But I don't have much of an infrastructure when it comes to a team. No, I don't.
Okay, give us those contacts again.
You can reach me, Major for Congress, at 509-217-1912, or you can get on our website, which is majorforcongress.com, majorforcongress.com, or if you want to email us, you can email me at info@majorforcongress.com.
All right, Stephen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
He is Stephen Major. He is running for 5th Congressional District. Would like your vote in the August 4th primary. I'm Mike Fitzsimmons. Thanks for watching. Let's talk.